Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I am here with Cole Hayes.
So I work as a communications assistant, primarily with the women's hockey team at U of T. So I run their social media, all the game recaps on their website. It's been an unreal experience so far and love doing it. It's get paid to watch sports, so you can't really complain too much when you're doing that. It's working at the candy store. My dad's a huge Leafs fan. My grandfather's a huge Leafs fan. Some people's parenting systems, like parents might have a reward for you. For me, it was like you can stay up past your bedtime to watch the end of the Leaf game. If I was doing my chores and getting my homework done, because I want to have kids one day as well, and I want to let them pick the sport that they want to get into.
What does a week look like working with the women's hockey team doing media?
You're kind of talking to everyone when you're there. Players, talking to the coaches, just sort of getting them to do stuff for socials. A lot of sales pitches of like, come on, it'll be fun, you can do it. Like, to try and get the people that are more camera shy to get a little bit more involved.
Turn into darker matters. The Goudreau incident was devastating. He has 2 young kids, I believe.
Yeah, and his wife said at the funeral that she's pregnant with their third. I watched a lot of Johnny Gaudreau. He really was an underdog like his entire career. He was someone that I think touched everybody.
All set?
All set.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Today I am here with Cole Hayes, 5th-year journalism student. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to do this, so I'm glad to... I've been seeing the podcast for like about the last 6 months, just popping up on my feed, so I'm glad to finally come on, and yeah.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. You work with the Varsity Blues.
I do.
So you told me you do work in hockey. Are you working just with the hockey team, or are you doing different teams? How did that all get started? Maybe let's start there. It's a good entry point to kind of introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, so I work as a communications assistant, primarily with the women's hockey team at U of T. So I run their social media, all the game recaps on their website, like kind of just all that stuff is sort of run by me. And, you know, there's a few people that I work under that are phenomenal and there to help me out too, but it's sort of like they kind of gave me the reins to run those accounts. And then this year I've done a little bit of work with the football team, just kind of when they need an extra body in there.
Yep.
I'll sort of come off the bench and pinch hit and go do a video or something like that. But it's been an unreal experience so far and love doing it. It's get paid to watch sports, so you can't really complain too much when you're doing that.
Absolutely, completely. I did 2 years, maybe I shouldn't say 2 years, 2 summers in sports media with my local lacrosse team. So the Orangeville Northmen, and same thing, like Instagram, score updates. A lot of the parents use Facebook, so Facebook posts, that kind of thing. And same thing, it's like, I had a friend on the team who was playing on the team, and he's like, I am almost envious of your position because, once again, getting paid to watch sports, it's a great life to live.
It's working at the candy store. Is what some of the media people always say, and I very much feel that when I'm doing that.
Absolutely. So walk me through the start of your interest in both things, in media and in sports. I'm thinking sports came first, but the interest in media had to have come from somewhere as well.
Yeah, so with sports, it came pretty young. Like my dad's a huge Leafs fan, my grandfather's a huge Leafs fan, so it was sort of expected that I'd be a Leafs fan. I still got those John Tavares type of lying down in my Leafs pajama pictures if they ever come calling. I don't think they'll take my house league resume, but you never know. But that being said, like I just got into it at a really young age and I was hooked right away, especially into hockey growing up. Like it was what basically almost controlled me. It was sort of some people's parenting systems, like parents might have a reward for you. For me, it was like you can stay up past your bedtime to watch the end of the Leaf game. If I was doing my chores and getting my homework done and doing okay in school and all that. And I just got hooked on it early on. Like even like when I got into video games, I got really into like the NHL video games and just loved it for like as long as I can remember, really. Like it's just something I bonded with my dad watching. It's something that it kind of revolves around my life. And I think with the media aspect, I knew at a pretty young age. Like I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. Like I was still in elementary school. And I knew I wasn't going to the show, just with like, at that point I had never actually played organized hockey or anything. And I always thought the commentators were really cool. I used to like I used to play like mini sticks by myself and like commentate the game.
Yeah.
And like I'd be like on my knees in the basement, pretend to get lit up by a hit and just get right up and go the other way. And
Yeah.
I'd be like commentating it.
Yeah.
And all that fun stuff. And I think it was just kind of something at that age where I'm like, it'd be really cool to just get paid and watch sports.
Yeah.
And as I got a little bit older, I got into baseball, I got into football, basketball, all that stuff. And it sort of just became, it really just kind of was like, I want to do something that I want to enjoy for the rest of my life. And I feel like watching sports is probably the thing I enjoy the most in the world. So that's what kind of got me into it.
That's sweet. That's sweet. I love the mini stick story because I've been thinking recently, I want to have kids in the future. I can't wait. But another big reason, I don't know if I should say big reason, like there's obviously so many important reasons in life to have children and start a family, but like it has to be in my top 20. I can't wait to have a little man to play mini sticks against. And I'm not taking it easy on him either. I'm lighting him up. He's going to have to work for his wins.
Absolutely.
I still have mini stick nets to this day. I played with my boy. He's like, how old is he? This guy's 20. I'm 20. We're out here playing mini sticks still. It's a little more aggressive there. The hitting is crazy. But I did the same thing. Anytime, so like I have a younger brother. We'd play a lot, but sometimes he wouldn't want to play. And now he's like, he completely isn't into it. But I'm just so obsessed with it. So I would do like a crossbar challenge with myself. I'd have like one team Montreal, another team Toronto, and I'd be like, if I hit the crossbar, it's a goal. If not, I don't. First to 5 wins or whatever. So yeah, no, I don't know. There's something about in Canada, hockey is like the sport. In the US, you got NFL, NBA, MLB, but like this whole country can get behind their hockey teams. Obviously, like MLB's got one Canadian team. NFL doesn't have any. NBA has one. NHL 7. So maybe 8 if you want to bring in Quebec City again. But yeah, it's a huge unifying thing for this country.
Exactly. And I think it was kind of just something that like, you know, it's the cliche, but like you're playing on the backyard rinks and the frozen ponds and going to the local park to play just some pickup shinny. And like, it's something I try and keep in my life, like even as I enter adulthood, just like in the wintertime, like a way I try and just sort of stay active is like, I would just go to those morning, like drop-in shinnies and just kind of go skate around with the pucks, and hopefully enough people that have the day off or like you can get enough people to get a game going. Yeah. But it's funny with the battles with like the more hitting, because that's like a fond memory of my childhood. Yeah. Is my cousin and I are the same age, like we're both 22, and as we got a little bit older, like when we hit like 9, 10, 11 years old, like it was like a rugby scrum to get those pucks. Like I get a scar on my eyelid from a high stick. He's got a scar on his forehead from, I think I would have gotten 3 games if it was an NHL hit, just right from behind into his like kitchen counter when we were probably like 10 years old. But like it got aggressive as we got older, but it made it more fun, honestly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You should see my basement walls. Dents, marks. It's awful. I was like, my mom's always talking about like, I need to repaint the house. You guys need to help me repaint the house, blah, blah, blah. And then I was basically just telling her, I'm like, this is character built into this house. This is the house you have when you have 2 sons that like hockey and play mini sticks against each other from age 7 to 17. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's great. It's just great. My brother's 2.5 years younger than me, so we never actually played in the same league much other than high school. So we went to the same high school. We played a couple seasons there, and then COVID came in and took out basically at least a season for me and him. Obviously did not play together, but yeah, like I know that I'm obviously not going to the show either. There's an age, and I never even played rep. This is the thing. You mentioned your house league resume. I have the same thing. I must have tried out for my local rep team like 6-7 times, never got in. And like it's just something that, you know, you don't want to take for granted. Even just like any sort of level of competition in sports, especially hockey for us, it's something to be cherished. But what was I going to say about the show? Right. I'm not going to show, obviously. I don't know if you have the same aspiration as me, but I would like it for my son to maybe go to the NHL and train him up to be, a superstar.
It'd be pretty awesome. I kind of like, because I want to have kids one day as well, and I think for me it's sort of, I want to let them pick the sport that they want to get into. Like,
Right.
obviously I got into hockey because like just family ties and watching it, but like when I was a kid, my parents just kind of signed me up for everything, whether it was like, t-ball. I think every kid in my area played soccer at some point, like
Yep.
all that fun stuff. I always joke that like if I have a kid, I hope he's left-handed and can throw 100 miles an hour and just be like one of those MLB relief pitchers that like sit in the bullpen, you pitch 3 or 4 times a week. You just kind of make like $10 million to watch baseball, rip a couple zins, chew some tobacco, and sit in the bullpen, go pitch a couple times a week. But I want to see my kid make it in sports, and hockey would be my choice personally, but I kind of want to let them pick it just so that they don't do that. Cause like, I don't want to be a hockey parent, I want my kid to be really good at hockey, but I don't want to be like the hockey dad that's like living vicariously after their failed like junior C career,
Yeah, that's fair. Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, that's funny. So you mentioned the media interest, you would commentate, you used to like listening to the commentators, that kind of thing. What was your first ever media job? Was it with the Blues?
No. So my first media job was, I guess like in terms of self-employment, my podcast, I started it in grade 12, did about 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And then I graduated high school in 2020.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of hard to do a hockey podcast when there's no hockey for 6 months.
Yeah.
Picked it up again in first year when like the bubble was going on, and then I've been doing that since. But my first like job was in second year. I worked for a website called Maple Leaf Insider just through like a job posting I saw on Twitter from the managing editor. Worked there for about 6 months, and it was cool. It was kind of it was almost like TMZ, where like you just sort of scour the internet and do little write-ups on like any little Leafs rumor. We did sometimes have those TMZ type headlines where it'll be like, breaking, Austin Matthews absent at practice. And then an hour later it comes out like, oh, he had a maintenance day. But that was sort of my first little stab at it, I guess, professionally, if we want to call it that.
Nice.
Was writing for just like a website that I saw online and kind of just doing little write-ups for them.
That's awesome. How was that experience? Like, because for the longest time for me personally, I would do like not paid work, but like I would run a hockey pool, for example, with my family, and I would not necessarily do the headline and writing type thing, but I was very interested in like graphic design. So I would make these little like pictures and Photoshop things, kind of similar to what I Photoshop maybe for stuff like the podcast, but it was for hockey and it was for the pool that we had. But once it got into work, a lot of people, when their passion then translates into an obligation, they start to lose a bit of love for it. I was wondering if maybe did any of that happen to you, or were you the whole time like, I'm Leafs, I love reporting on the Leafs before, and even now that I have to report on the Leafs, I still love it?
It was like that for a while. It was part of the reason why I left there was it started to sort of feel like a job.
Yeah.
Because it sort of started to get to the point where I guess like because I was young, like I was like 19 years old at the time, I kind of felt my fandom going away because I'd be watching the games to report on it afterwards.
Right.
And, you kind of miss out on some of those opportunities, say go to your buddy's house and watch the game or go to a sports bar and watch it, or even go to the game. And it was sort of one of those, it was sort of when I started missing out on those like sort of memories. That was kind of when I decided like, all right, I'm going to put in my notice.
Yeah.
It also started to get very busy because like I was still in school.
Right.
And when we transitioned back to in person, it kind of got just became more of a workload just because then I'm commuting, then I'm actually doing classes because like online university, it was a joke. It was such a gong show.
Yeah.
But I just found like as I had less time on my hand, that was when it started to feel more like it was like it went from like, yes, I get to write this article to like, oh man, I gotta write a couple articles after this. And that was sort of when I sort of transitioned, because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people I worked with, but it was kind of, I felt like my time was up and I kind of wanted to move on to new ventures.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fair. Did you see the video of, this was a long time ago, but when they had these online classes that were first starting, the Nelk boys would get their fans to send them links, and then they'd join the class and troll the teacher and everybody in it.
I did see some of those, yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was like a funny era of time. A lot of people, like a lot of my high school friends, I don't know if I should say a lot, but like maybe one or two, find it very disappointing that like their high school experience was kind of taken away from them in their last 2 years, for example, because of COVID. But in a way, it almost gave you maybe the most unique high school experience, because so many generations beforehand never had anything like that. And so many generations, hopefully, in the future aren't going to have something like that as well. So it's like, there are so many COVID school memories of like just the dumb shit that would happen, and just like, what is this professor trying to do? This is ridiculous. And everyone just kind of being confused and figuring things out, that I think is kind of valuable in a way.
Yeah. Like I think I was very I was bitter at the time, because I was like, oh, we're missing out on prom, missing out on grad, missing out at I played lacrosse in high school and didn't get to play my senior year, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think as time's gone on, I'm like, that stuff doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
In the sense of
the grand scheme of things.
I'm like, oh no, I didn't have to go sit in a gym in a suit in June for 3 hours and sweat my ass off and shake the principal's hand, kind of thing. But I'm sort of it was a unique experience. Like my graduation was just kind of in my backyard with a couple of my buddies, just sort of like a barbecue. And it was kind of cool, because it was the people you wanted to spend the time with anyways, and people I'm still friends with now. Yeah. Now that we're all into our early 20s. So it's kind of cool looking back on that experience. And even with the online school, it was cool seeing people. It was very funny seeing some professors struggle with technology, because you're like, this is some person that has 3 degrees and all this stuff, and they're making more money in a year than I'll probably make in all my 20s. And but they can't get their mic to unmute for some reason, even though it's just pressing a button. So it was very funny in that sense. Yeah. And also it was kind of cool to do class in bed. You wake up at 9 a.m. You're half awake. You're just kind of having your morning coffee while some guy's rambling about some elective that you're taking for a breath requirement. So it was kind of cool in that sense, I'm glad it's over.
100%.
But 100%. It was a unique experience.
You got to find the positives, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A YouTuber that I spent a lot of my high school time watching was this guy, maybe maybe not, the hockey guy on YouTube.
Yes. These just got all the jerseys and the whiteboard and all that. Yeah.
That guy is a beauty. Shout out to Shannon Scanes, the hockey guy. That, I don't know how his following has grown to the point it has, because he talks about it all the time in terms of using no special effects, no editing tricks. And he's kind of bringing back just in my opinion, he's restoring a lot of this generation's attention span, because now everyone is needs to scroll and needs to see these flashy, cool tricks. Whereas he's got whiteboard, like you said, whiteboard, magnets, markers, and that's it. And it's just, for me, it was so soothing just to watch. And it's talking about sports that I feel there's no other, I can't think of the basketball hockey guy. There's no one in any other space that can do the thing he does, and so many people tune in.
No, and that guy's a machine. That guy does not take breaks.
Nope.
It'll be Christmas morning, and he's putting out some historical video.
3 videos even.
It's you get just midsummer, he's doing news of the day, and it's this fourth liner that was really good 3 years ago is signing a PTO with the Dallas Stars. And he just he doesn't stop. But you can just tell he loves it when he's talking about it. But it's kind of cool to just get those videos where it's all right, here's 7 minutes. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know. Yeah. I almost use it to prep for media work when I'm doing NHL coverage. I'll just go and watch his videos from the last couple of days and be is there anything that I've missed? Because I'm chronically online when it comes to hockey, but there's so much shit that I miss just because there's so much going on sometimes during the year, and I'm good with like keeping up with the Leafs, but it's like so nice thing happens with another team, and it's like I'm gonna get Shannon to give me the explainer, and then I'll do more digging if I feel like I need to afterwards. But I loved watching that guy's videos. Like I think I found his videos in like grade 10 and just kind of been watching them ever since. And
Absolutely. He's the GOAT. So there's different angles you can take. The reason I bring that up is because there's different routes for media reporters in 2024. You can become a YouTuber like the hockey guy is. You can go and work for Sportsnet. You can be like Elliot Friedman, this kind of guy. You can be a commentator. There's so many different like routes for sports media. So I'm wondering for you specifically, if you want to pursue this as a career, which path is like of most interest?
I think right now, and maybe it's biased because I'm working in the field, but like just doing communications work, like doing PR, doing social media, I've found that to be just a very fun experience and a very rewarding experience because you kind of feel like you're on like the team's payroll. And I think as you get to know the players and the coaching staff and the trainers and just kind of everyone involved, like you start to feel almost a part of the team. And I've just found it very rewarding and I've enjoyed it. And I think going down that communications path, it's kind of where I have the most experience now professionally. And it's the biggest platform I've worked with where like my name is out there and it's just been something I've enjoyed so much. So like, because growing up, I was always like, oh, I'm going to be the next Bob McKenzie. And that's what I kind of wanted to do. And then a guy like Steve Dangle sort of changed it a little bit where I'm like, okay, I can go and work media, but still kind of, I could still wear my blue and white jersey underneath my suit and be a bit biased and be a bit of a homer, but still analyze it in a meaningful way. But I think the communications path is sort of where I'm going to look at going down. Like it's something I have to think about more because I'm supposed to graduate this year. We'll see if that happens. I was supposed to graduate last year, so now we're back. But I kind of want to go down that path and just sort of keep moving up the ranks. In there, kind of do the little path of like how guys go from, they play junior hockey, they might go play university hockey, go to like the coast, go to the AHL, and eventually try and make it to the show. And I think I kind of want to do that path within like a communications route.
That's sweet. We'll take a quick break for the cameras. We'll let them cool down. Nothing's cut out, just precautionary, and then we'll jump back into it.
Beauty.
It's been a good conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Short break. What I wanted to ask you was, what does a week look like working with the women's hockey team doing media? If you had to walk me through the tasks you take, the people you talk to, everything.
So yeah, usually a week in my life, I'm in like less of a school load because I'm in a fifth year, so that definitely helps the burden. Like there's people doing this job that are in like second, third year, that they have more school to do. But like just from that aspect, usually like the team's practicing 3 or 4 times a week. I'll usually go to 1 or 2 practices. At practice, I kind of just shoot content. Like I try and do one piece of content that I'll post that week, and then another one that I can bank for like just if there's maybe a week where we don't have as many games, or just over the holidays and stuff like that when the OUA takes breaks, just filming content for the socials. Sometimes I'll arrange it ahead of time with a player if there's something specific that I really want to do. Other times I kind of just show up and I'm like, hey guys, I need 4 of you to do this little TikTok thing for socials. And they warmed up to it pretty quickly with doing it all. Like I think there was definitely like a getting used to like me being around every day kind of thing, because it was a new position last year that they started doing.
Got it.
So there was definitely a bit of like an adjustment process for everyone. But for me, like usually go to 2 practices a week. I'll get there about an hour beforehand and sort of shoot everything before practice. And then while they're out there, I kind of I'll do stuff I'll just usually either edit content or start working on like graphics for like game days. And sometimes I just hang out and watch practice. And you're kind of talking to everyone when you're there. You're talking to the players, talking to the coaches. Like usually I'll pop in, say hi to the coaches, ask them if there's anything they need from me, like if there's anything they want to put out there, because sometimes they might want, say they want an announcement about like a team event or something like that, or like a fundraiser.
Yeah.
Kind of just going over with them. Other times I'll also tell them what I'm doing. Like if we're miking up a player for a practice,
Yep.
I'll tell them that I'm going to mic up this person so that they're not caught off guard why someone has like a little lapel clip to their cage. And
Yeah.
also just to make sure like it's not going to be something that is going to get away with the practice, because I don't want to post them talking about how they're going to game plan for
Right.
this player on Western or something like that.
Yeah. 100%.
And then it's kind of just going in there like you're almost hanging out half the time.
Yeah.
And just sort of getting them to do stuff for socials, and a lot of sales pitches of like, come on, it'll be fun, you can do it, like to try and get the people that are more camera shy to get a little bit more involved. After that, like it's almost like a little hybrid job. Like when I'm at home doing work for it, it's kind of going through photos that our photographers take, and the photography and videography team of Varsity Blues, like those people will be shooting NHL games one day. Like those people are really good.
Nice.
So it's kind of just going through photos, deciding which ones I'm going to use. And then a game day, I get there, depending on what I'm doing, because sometimes I'll do like the walk-in outfits. So if I'm doing that, I'm at the rink. If it's a 7:00 game, I'm getting to the rink at like 4:00 to make sure I'm getting there before all they walk in, so that they can do like the red carpet walk as I'm like crouched down in a corner with a camera.
Yeah.
And then for that sort of hour and a half before game time, I'm just sort of editing the video to get that ready for posting. Throw a little link in the post to like promo the game that night.
Yeah.
And then during the game, like I'm doing a lot of Instagram stories during it. Like I'll be camped out behind the net with my phone, just trying to capture the goal for Instagram stories. Usually at intermission, I might post something, whether it's just like a photo dump or any goal highlights. And during the game, you're kind of doing Instagram and you're doing Twitter. So it's sort of going through the stuff that you have in your content folder and deciding like, all right, what's going up on Instagram? What do I got to put up on Twitter?
Yeah.
I usually take notes during the game just so that I can do my game recap afterwards. And then I also write the game recap as the game's going on, because I find like when it's fresh in my head, I'll be able to just be a little bit more detailed with like what happened on the play and who scored it. And I don't have to rely on the box score for like which player got the assist or something like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of find like sort of write like my little pre and post like before the game, where I'll just be like, the U of T women's hockey team beat Queens 3-1 on Saturday at Varsity Arena.
Yeah.
And then I'll sort of write like the little outro, like they play again tomorrow night against TMU. You can get your tickets here and you can stream the game here. And then just kind of writing during the game. Afterwards, if like people are doing interviews, whether I have to do one or sometimes you'll get like people from the varsity, which is where I used to write for before I had this gig.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll come and they'll ask if they can do an interview. So then it's kind of pulling that player aside and being like, hey, like no rush, but we have reporters that want to talk to you. If you could please do that.
Yeah.
But it's cool. Like you're just kind of watching hockey, hanging out at the rink, and I love it. Like I find with like a week in my life, everything's different with this job. Like, I never go in with the exact same day as you had the day before, because something that you planned won't happen. Whether it just be technology or, maybe you have this content plan. You're like, oh, I'm going to do these captions when they score goals, and then it's a 1-0 game. Yeah. You get there's something different every day in that line of work, which I really like. And it can be a grind sometimes because I find I'm just doing it so much, but it's something that I love, and it's sort of like one of those things where it keeps me involved with the school. It's something I enjoy doing. Yeah. You make friends through it. It's been an unreal experience.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's great to hear. With these like TikTok content pieces that you do make, what is the intended purpose of the stuff? Like I can understand score updates and this kind of thing, but like with this newer form of marketing, I guess you could call it, of like viral marketing, these clips, like trying to be aware of the trends, what's popular, what's not. What is the goal? Like, is the goal for it to get a bunch of views? Is it to bring in more fans to watch the games? Like, what is the purpose of this content?
I think there's many purposes to it. Like, obviously you want to bring in more fans to watch the games, but I think a lot of it is like promoting the personalities off the ice, because you know, a lot of people know athletes from what they see on the box score and what they see on TV, so it's kind of getting them to do stuff.
Yeah.
Outside of that, sometimes you get cool stories. Like even last year, we did some content with Erica Fryer, who was the goalie. She's since graduated, but I was like, what if we just do like a tour of your goalie mask, and you can just kind of tell us about the designs that you put on it. And I think it's kind of just a little bit of everything. It's promoting the team. It's trying to bring more fans in, sort of just doing poking our own little fun at the trends that are going on. But I think like the biggest thing for me is just showcasing the athletes and the personalities, and just kind of showing that there's more to it than just what you're seeing on the ice, you know?
Yeah, 100%. That's cool. If someone wanted to get into this line of work, because it is a very, as you said, it's right up there with a lot of people's dream jobs. Like, if you ask someone who wanted to be an NHL player and then they drop that, the next best thing is at least to work in the NHL, and maybe not on the ice, but maybe like in the offices, you know what I mean? Still be involved with the league, with the sport. Cause I know that was my dream after I gave up. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to the show. I haven't even played any rep hockey. It's just not realistic. So my next thing was like, could I be a GM? I have friends who did the same thing. They went and studied studied sports management at Waterloo. And a lot of people want just to be around that line of work. So you who's had experience already with this kind of stuff, there are people out there who would love to be in your position. You're like, how do I even get anything close to that? How do I get near that space? What would you kind of offer as advice? Or like maybe what do you do to get involved in that for a beginner?
I would say there's like kind of a couple pieces of advice that I have with it, but the first is you got to do it. It's kind of a line of work where they're not going to find you. You have to find them.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same to get into as like, you know, dropping off your resume at this place or stuff like that. You got to kind of get yourself out there. I found how I got my start, like with U of T, was the Varsity, which is the paper on campus. Yeah. I just kind of started writing stuff for them, and eventually I'd sort of pitched like, hey, what if we do game coverage? And I kind of covered the men's and women's hockey teams sort of down the stretch and into the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to get involved because like it's a volunteer position, but they don't require experience. They don't require any of that stuff. And it's published bylines with your name that you can then put on your socials. You can put it on your LinkedIn, all that stuff. And it's something that when you apply for jobs, you can be like, here's a portfolio of published work that I've done as you sort of try and move up. And it's just a good way to get started because you kind of can learn what you like about it and what you don't. And I find because with U of T, there's so many different sports here. Yeah. You can go cover hockey. You can go cover basketball. You could go cover like golf if you wanted to, and kind of maybe see if you're someone that like me, where you're like, I really like 5 or 6 sports. Go cover some of them and see if there's any that you kind of want to build a career into. And then I think the other thing is like when you're reaching out to people, one, don't be afraid of rejection and getting ghosted, because that's going to happen a lot. But also, and not just in media too, but you know, I think like also just telling them like when you're sending stuff, you're kind of pitching yourself, and it's not like, hey, you know, I really like this sport and I've always cheered for this team. How can I help you? You got to tell them, my name's Cole. I'm really good at writing. I can do social media, and this is where I can help you. Yeah. And it's kind of putting yourself out there and extending that branch to them and hoping that they latch on, and kind of having that mentality that like it's probably not going to work out, but it doesn't hurt to put yourself out there, and you kind of just got to hope for the best with it. And I think it's all about putting yourself out there and just finding ways to get your foot in the door, because nobody has the same path in this field. I find everyone I've talked to that does it like professionally, they all got their start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. You got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to just, I think that it's really important, especially as young people, to kind of prove yourself. You know what I mean? Like people, I feel like when you say that, there's a bit of a stigma. It's like, I don't need to prove myself to anyone, blah, blah, blah. I know my worth. But it's like, no one else does. You know what I mean? You might know your worth, but you have to show people if you want them to hire you. You know what I mean? They have the job you want. So, and even if they don't, if you're going to work for yourself, why should people listen to you if you're going to start your own sports podcast? Like, I don't need to prove myself. You do need to prove yourself. You got to actually come out here and not only be like as working as hard as the best people. For example, like if you're trying to compete with the hockey guy, you can't just be doing 3 videos a day because that's what he does. You're never going to pass him if you're going at the same pace. If you really want to get out there and make a name, you got to double the work that other people are doing, either in quantity, quality, both. Like just pumping that stuff out. You got to be on the clock all the time. And it's ruthless, whether it's in sports or anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And I think too, like, you know, it's one of those fields where it's like, all right, you might have a journalism degree, you might have an English degree. If you went to TMU, you might have a sports media degree, but you still got to prove to these people that you can think beyond a classroom.
Yeah.
I found like U of T had helped where you do 3 years at university, but you do for third year, you go to Centennial College and do actual field work. So it was, instead of writing an essay on like how the media covers this political event, we had an assignment where it was like, go out and find a local event to cover.
Yeah.
And it was, this campus was down in East York, and I found like an independent wrestling promotion. And I was like, that's what I'm going to cover. I'm going to go cover this wrestling show that's in a church basement that, you know, they book like one guy that was in WWE for a cup of coffee to sort of sell tickets and go cover that. And I think getting that experience really helped because it kind of shows like, not only can you think it, but you can go out there and do it. And I think that's a big thing with it is it's a very hands-on field where you gotta, you know, anyone can follow a manual when you're putting up a shelf, but can you actually put up that shelf? Like, you can read it, but can you do it?
Yeah, 100%. And I say this in the most respectful way possible. I'm sure there are people at U of T. Everyone at U of T has certainly encountered a lot, or at least a few dumbasses here. Even if it's the best school in the country, there are still people who you look at and you're just like, how the hell? Me and this guy are getting the exact same degree. Meaning if you're trying to go to that job, you know that this guy who you think is stupid is also coming in with the same qualification as you. So if you really think you're that much better, you got to show them you're that much better. Because you yourself are passing judgment on this guy because you think he's a dumbass. But he and you both have the same whatever, economics degree, journalism, Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts, whatever you want to do. It's not enough. You need that portfolio, as you were saying, and you need to have work that people can look at. People aren't going to take bets on you when they're in the seat of power, when they have the jobs, when they are the Varsity Blues or when they are TSN. They're not taking a risk. Why? They don't need to. They have thousands of people applying. Hundreds of them have proven they have good work. Why would they take a chance on you who's like, I swear I got the degree, even though they don't, there's no product there.
Yeah.
So it's important to prove yourself. Absolutely. You have a quote. I don't know if you remember writing this down because I know that we ideally would have done this in the summer, but I wasn't here in the summer, so we have recorded it a little bit later. I appreciate you still being interested in doing it. But you had a quote that you wrote down, and I'd have to assume it's got something to do with getting this job and with helping with the Blues. And you said, it's not about what you can help with, it's how you can help. Maybe, I don't know if you want to break that down. I don't know if you remember what you were saying by that, but.
Yeah, it's something that I kind of, it was a quote that I heard on a podcast in like third year university, and it just really stuck with me because, you know, like I said earlier with like talking about how you can get into the field, it's, you know, they don't give a shit that you have the degree. They care about your body of work.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes you need that degree for, you know, HR reasons and like this is why they need to hire you.
Right.
But like I found I learned more about journalism personally actually going out in the field and doing it than I did sitting in a lecture hall and learning about like Noam Chomsky for 2 hours or,
Yeah.
taking some history elective or poli-sci course to get the breadth requirements you need to graduate. But I think it's like that with life in general, kind of thing. Like any job you're applying to, it's how can I do this? Not just that you understand it, but that you can put what you know to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that can come along with anything. Even something as simple as like you're planning an event, you're having your friends over for the game. It's like you got to kind of figure out like how you're going to make that happen. And it's not just about having the plan, it's about executing it. And I think that's something that, anyone listening can hopefully relate to, or maybe makes them think a little bit more. But yeah, it's something that I've always found has sort of helped me and sort of changed my mentality when I started like applying for jobs in the industry in like third year.
Yeah, that's sweet. The name of your Leafs podcast, what is it called?
It's called The Center of the Universe.
Center of the Universe.
Toronto. It's Center of the Hockey Universe. We're the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Knicks, the New York Yankees of hockey,
Yeah.
This is the center of the universe. No matter how good or bad the Leafs are, we are the first headline on all these companies every time.
Yeah, absolutely. The Mecca, absolutely. So I don't know if you'd be interested. I would enjoy, for the end of this podcast, we can have a mini Center of the Universe episode right here. I want to talk to you about the Leafs.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to talk to you about the NHL at a broader scale as well, what you think about this upcoming season. And just I want to get your thoughts because it's coming up. It's starting on October 4th with 2 games in Prague. The Sabres and the Devils are in Europe playing those 2 games. Then the regular season in North America starting on October 8th, which I can't wait to see the opener between Utah and Chicago. That's going to be a cool thing.
That'll be a fun one. I'm excited for Utah.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad there's no more Coyotes debacles.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to Kachinas. They were sick jerseys, but
Yeah.
I'm excited that they're in Utah, and it just feels more like somewhere that's a hockey market.
Yeah. It was sad to see at the end of that season, just like all of it crumbling apart, because at least from what I understood, it wasn't a problem necessarily with fans. Like obviously they're not Toronto. I'm not saying that, but it could have worked. But the main thing was the management that wasn't in place.
Yeah. The owner, one, doesn't have as much money as he claims to.
Right.
And 2, he's just kind of bad at business. Like, not paying bills and it's like what happens if I rent an apartment and I don't pay my water bill. They're going to shut my water off.
Right.
I don't pay my rent, they're going to kick me out. Same thing happened with this guy, didn't pay his rent, gets kicked out. They're playing an arena that has actually less seats than Varsity.
I was going to say
that. It didn't work. It wasn't sustainable. And I think eventually these big market teams like, why are we paying into revenue sharing when this guy's playing at an OHL size rink? Like, it was a bit of a joke. And like the fans in Arizona, hockey works in those small markets. Like, but you got to win. Like Carolina fans are passionate. We saw the Panthers this year. Fans were coming out. The Lightning had built like a huge fan base out there. Problem with the Coyotes is like, they've been pretty bad for the majority of my life. And I think because of that, like, didn't really give people a reason to support. And like, you're just now seeing the fruitions with like a guy like Austin Matthews or Matthew Nyes that grew up there and went to Coyotes games and idolized Shane Doan. Like, those guys are finally at the age where they're breaking into the league. But when the owner is bad at running a business, they're going to go out of business. And then you get a guy in Utah that has had success with the Jazz and has the money and has an arena. Yeah, we're going to go there. And, if a new billionaire in Arizona comes out and he goes, I want to bring a team back to Phoenix and this is what we're going to do differently, great. And I hope they get a team back one day. But this iteration of it had to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for Leafs fans in particular, there is a bit of kind of relief when that happened, because not too late after, Matthews said he wanted to be a Leaf for life, which I think was not necessarily a coincidence that once Arizona did move and once his hometown team became a Utah team, which isn't the team that he grew up watching, that he committed to that he wanted to be a Leaf for life. Because a lot of fans worried sometimes, like, could he sign in Arizona when his contract expires, or like maybe will he want to retire playing for the team? What, like, are we going to lose Matthews if we don't win a cup soon? Like that kind of thing. Whereas now, captain, everything feels a lot safer, and I'm excited to see the next. He's signed for a long extension, right?
I think it's 5 years that he signed up for, so
that's sweet.
It's very exciting, and hopefully get 5 more after that, and hopefully by the end of this contract there's actually a ring on his finger, because that would be, I feel like it'd be like my life's work coming to fruition. Like I'd be willing to be just fail at everything in life, but if the Leafs win the cup, like I would at least die happy, you know?
Yeah. So that's funny. What did I want to say about Utah? It's about Matthews. I can't remember exactly. Okay, let me give you a side question. We're still talking about the NHL. I had a question from my uncle. He used to ask me this. He's like, what would you rather? Pick up a $100 bill on the sidewalk or for the Leafs to win the cup? And I want to ask you, what is the dollar amount that, not that you'd pay, I'm not saying that you need to pay it for the Leafs to win the cup, but if you came across a $100 bill on the sidewalk, do you think that would be more valuable to you than watching the Leafs win? How much money would it take? $1,000 on the sidewalk? $5,000? What's that number for you? I feel like that's a good level to assess people's Leafs fandom.
I think it'd need to be like enough money to buy a house. Like, you know, I've spent hundreds of dollars on tickets to go watch them lose on like a Wednesday night against like a Western Conference team, you know, like it would need to be like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe even over $1 million just with today's housing market, but like
right.
It would need to be like life-changing money.
Right.
Like even if it was like 10 grand, I'd be like nope.
Not just
that's not worth my time. That's like, I'm like, for the memory I would have if they did that, like, I think about it like all the time. Like, I'm like, if they win, what am I going to do? And like, I always picture it like they win, whenever they win it, I always picture it that they win on the road.
Oh yeah.
I go downtown, I just party in the street all night. That next morning, I go to Pearson, and I'm like one of those crazy fans that's like standing outside the airport, like tears of joy, clapping for them as they're like getting off the plane. Then I'm probably going out to celebrate at this point too. Then, you know, you get the parade, going to that and just celebrating. I haven't slept yet in my mind. Like I'm still, it's still like a fever dream. It's like no drug could keep me awake as much as the Leafs winning the cup would, you know? And then after the parade, you go celebrate. And then I think the next day I would finally sleep.
There you go.
But like, you know, I've already planned the route. I've already planned like where I'm going to go. I need it to happen one day. It's like, I've been waiting my whole life.
What's the team that you'd envision them beating in the cup final?
Like a West Coast team. Like I'm picturing like they beat Vegas. And they go party in Vegas that night. And I think when the Bruins won the cup in 2011, they racked up, it was like an $105,000 tab.
I saw that.
And like, I want the Leafs to round up like a $19,067 tab. Like just sick. Go get, like just go celebrate.
100%.
Like it would mean everything to me if they won.
That's huge. Turn into, I guess, darker matters. The Gaudreau incident was devastating. That was terrible to see. Anyone who's not kind of in the hockey world who doesn't know about it, Matthew and Johnny Gaudreau, I guess I should say Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau, older brother Johnny, younger Matthew, 31 and 29, cycling on the road on bicycles, hit by a drunk driver, both of them killed. Johnny Gaudreau is, just for context, he's not a top 10 player in the NHL, but he is the best player on his team, or he was the best player on his team. So he is a big name. Everyone in the hockey world knows Johnny Gaudreau. It was a big deal when he left Calgary. He played there for, I think, at least 8 seasons or something, and then signed in Columbus to be closer to his family, and that was huge. And nothing but good things, obviously, you hear about him. Apparently he was like a very positive, he just looks like a happy guy. He looked like he was always, you know, in a good mood, making people feel better. And then for that to happen with, he has 2 young kids, I believe.
Yeah, and his wife said at the funeral that she's pregnant with their 3rd.
Yeah.
So
That's
like,
terrible.
It's awful. And I watched a lot of Johnny Gaudreau, especially when he was in Calgary, just because, you know, you get the late game of Hockey Night in Canada.
Yep.
Staying up for those Battle of Alberta games and staying up for those West Coast games. Like, you watch a lot of Johnny Gaudreau, and he really was an underdog like his entire career, because he was 5'8", maybe. Like, he's not a tall guy, and
Yep.
in a sport like hockey that's as physical, and, you know, you might get a shot just because you're 6'5", and then they'll see if you can play from there.
Yeah.
He kind of changed like the way the game's played. Like, I feel like he was that first wave of like the new skill that we kind of see now. Like, obviously before that you had like a young Ovechkin, you had Pavel Datsyuk, but that next wave was kind of led by Johnny Gaudreau. And I remember the Flames had a good run where they ultimately lost to the Ducks in 2015 in the second round, but like, it was the Cardiac Kids. It was Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan, and he was a fun player to watch. Like, he was, when you talk about just like a player that has that dog in them, that was Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
And like, everybody, the tributes that have come out for him, like, everybody that he came across seemed to touch him. And, you know, I never met Johnny Gaudreau. He doesn't know I exist, but he was someone that I think touched everybody.
Yeah.
Whether you were a Flames fan, a Blue Jackets fan, or just a hockey fan. Like, I've never met a person that was like, oh yeah, I hate watching Johnny Gaudreau play.
Yeah.
It was very sad too. It was very like disappointing. Like, I remember waking up that morning, I was getting ready for work, and saw the news like as I was like getting out of the shower, and it just like, the rest of that day just didn't feel real.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, like, I was starting to look at like teams' rosters for next season, and like Johnny Gaudreau was player circled on the Blue Jackets.
Yeah.
It was very sad to see, and it was disappointing too, because like, there's so many ways to avoid drinking and driving now.
Yeah.
And, you know, if my like, I don't want to call myself an idiot, but like, if me at 22 is smart enough to know like, all right, I'm going to my friend's house to watch the NFL game tonight, I'm probably going to go have a couple drinks. Like, I'll leave the car at home and take the subway, or call an Uber, or walk if it's nice out. Like, I think a guy that's 43 or however old the scumbag driver was, like, there's no excuse for it. And it's not just like, I saw this guy looking upset in the courtroom as if he ruined his life, but it's like, you just ruined the lives of 2 families. Like, there's 5 kids now that are going to grow up without fathers.
Literally.
There's wives that are never going to see their husbands again. His sister was supposed to get married that day. Like, it was very upsetting. And like, obviously the hockey perspective, like, the world lost a great player, but like, 2 people that didn't deserve to die that day died because someone was too selfish to spend $15 to take an Uber home.
Literally.
Like,
yeah. And another thing I've heard is that like, drinking and driving is one issue, but drinking and driving like a jackass is another issue. Because what happened, I've looked into the details of this, so they're in the right lane. The brothers, obviously the Goudreau brothers, are biking in the right lane as well. When you're biking, you're supposed to be going with traffic, not against traffic. So they're on the side of the road, and the drunk guy is in the back. So there's 2 cars in front of him. He's in the back. He speeds up to merge and pass the first car, right? So he gets ahead of that first car that's in front of him. Now he's in the middle of the 2 cars. The car in front of him sees the Goudreaus biking on the side of the road, so he gives them space, right? As you're supposed to do when you see cyclists on the side of the road, you keep at least a meter, at least, to make it so like you're not getting close to them. They're not protected in a giant metal box like you are. So he moves over, and as that guy was giving space to the brothers, the drunk guy decided to pass on the inside lane. He decided to pass between the guy who was giving the Goudreau's space and the brothers on the bicycles, and he fucking smoked them from the back. Ridiculously, it's just stupid. It's what did I call it?
Driving like a jackass.
Reckless. Yeah, driving like a jackass is stupidly reckless for no reason. And you're intoxicated. So you would think when people are if they're trying to get home, if they're not going to spend the $15 to get an Uber, you would think they'd be like, I'm gripping the wheel and I'm going to be as safe as I can because I'm not fully there. But this guy's being an idiot when he's under the influence. That's a completely separate issue. And like you said, like people in the hockey world are devastated, and I can't imagine what these families are going through exactly. So it's tough. And another thing was Sean Monahan that Johnny's wife mentioned in the funeral service was how tight their friendship was. And Sean Monahan, for anyone who doesn't know, played with Johnny Gaudreau in Calgary for a very long time. And he bounced around. He went to Montreal. He went to Winnipeg. But this summer signed, I think, 5 years or something in Columbus to reunite with Johnny to play their hockey together. And Johnny's wife said that she'd never seen Johnny Gaudreau more excited to play hockey than when Sean Monahan signed, so that he could be back with his friend. And it's so sad.
Yeah, it's like, it's honestly one of the saddest situations like I've gone through, like in terms of like deaths that weren't like in my immediate family. Like it's probably the one that's like touched me the most. Yeah. Just because it's like, it was so easily avoidable. And, you know, it was two guys, like one day you're watching Johnny Gaudreau play for the Blue Jackets, and the next day, like, he dies tragically, and it was horrible. Like, and like we kind of said, like, there's no excuse to like A, drive like a jackass, and B, like, enough things exist now to avoid drinking and driving. And unfortunately, like, the laws, in my opinion, aren't hard enough on it, just because, you know, like, this guy ruined multiple lives, and, you know, any jail time he gets will be a slap on the wrist compared to what the families will have to go through for the next however many years they still live, kind of thing.
Absolutely. So horrible situation. Obviously, prayers to the families. It's been a few weeks by the time this podcast is going to be out. It'll have been a while since it happened. Well, I shouldn't say a while, but maybe like a month or so. And you hope that people are able to heal and not forget Johnny and Matthew's legacy and kind of the people they were. And this comes from, once again, two people who've never met him, and we're sitting here talking about it, and it's just like, you see that kind of thing, and I don't know, just being involved in the league and the sport and being a fan, it's weird the kind of relationships you make with these players who, like, they're not even on your favorite team, they're just in the league. So yeah, it's interesting. But to kind of circle out, it's hard to transition out of such a sad topic, but Caulfield is changing his number to 13 in honor of Johnny Gaudreau, which I thought was pretty cool. And Montreal and Toronto will play their first game of the season against each other in Montreal. That's always a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I went to that game a couple of years ago, and it was unreal. Yeah. The Leafs lost, but it was a very fun game to go to.
Absolutely. I remember as a kid all the time, because there's 4 of them every year. It's like, when you're a kid, time moves a lot slower than it does now. So like 4 games in a year doesn't seem like too long from game to game. But when you're a kid, it's like, I can't, like, it's a huge thing. It's like I'm making bets with my uncle and everything, and it's just a fun thing to watch. But this season, this opener, it's going to be an interesting look with how different those two teams are. Like, because the Leafs might be signing Pacioretty. They got him on a tryout right now. By the time this is out, I'm sure we'll know if he's on the team or not. But having a former Habs captain on the team, that would be... What do you think about that?
It's going to be weird to get used to.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take back a lot of things I said to my buddies that were Habs fans about Pacioretty not being that good and, one of the worst players to ever score 40 goals and, how the Habs captaincy fell off from grace from going from Guy Lafleur and Maurice Richard to Max Pacioretty. But now he's a Leaf, so he's awesome.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
I know he's coming off like 2 torn Achilles injuries, but no, he's going to get back to that 30-goal form.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun game. Like the Leafs look, the offense is relatively the same, but the defense looks probably the best it has in my lifetime, at least on paper.
Yeah.
And I'm very intrigued by the goaltending because last year, I really like Ilya Samsonov. There was a 3-month stretch where you were like, we're gonna have to score 7 goals to win this game. And I think just when the team doesn't have that weight on their shoulders, it'll change it a lot. And I'm excited to see this new look Leafs. I'm in that cycle where I get down on them and I don't care.
Yeah.
But now, I've been in class for a couple weeks and just starting to get that itch again a little bit to watch them play.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that their goaltending situation this year, is it any better than having Samsonov? What do they have? They have just Joseph Wall, and Stolarz.
Anthony Stolarz, yeah. And Wall, we know he's good.
He is.
He's incredible.
Yeah.
Can he stay healthy? That's the question mark around Joseph Wall.
Can he start a full season, do you think? He hasn't, because I don't think he's ever played as starter 1A type deal.
No, and even in the minors, he dealt with injuries. In the NHL, he's never played more than 25 games in a season.
Right.
And in the minors, he's played about half a season. And I know the schedule in the minors is a little bit different, where instead of playing 3 games spread out over a 1-week period, it's sort of similar to university hockey, where they'll play Thursday, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
And kind of during the week, they're more just practicing and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy. And then with Stolarz, I know he played a backup goalie's workload, but he led the league in save percentage.
Yeah.
He's a behemoth of a human being. He's 6'6" or something like that.
Oh, wow.
He's very athletic and is coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He said when he did his introductory interviews, he's like, well, I didn't sign here to be backup. I want to play.
Yeah.
And I think having that internal competition between the two is good. And if they can split it, obviously by the playoffs, you want to have a number one. But if you can, maybe Joseph Wall plays 40 something and Stolarz plays the other 30 to hit 82. It'll be very interesting to see. And I think the goaltending situation, it on paper it looks good because it's 2 guys that are comfortable to watch in net. I played goalie growing up, and I always find for me the most fun goalies to watch obviously get the cool highlight reel saves, but a lot of times those happen because they're caught out of position,
right,
and they had to make that save. I find that
right.
Wall and Stolarz are both guys that they just make the routine saves. They can make those athletic saves when they need to, but they just they're 2 guys that stylistically, they're a goalie coach's dream,
Yeah, that's cool. Who do you think's the best goalie in the league right now? I got my thought. I want to hear you think.
I have kind of 2 different answers, because if I have a game 7 fate of the universe on the line, I'm taking Vasilevsky.
Right.
But I think right now the best goalie in the league is Shesterkin, because he's just,
I like those.
kind of consistently been the best guy in the league year after year for the last few years. He's always sort of been that top 3 conversation, and just kind of makes the Rangers, they play better in front of him, and he's a guy that just love watching him. But does your answer differ at all? Or
No, I had the same. That's a good point with Vasilevsky too. I know that these last couple seasons, last season he dealt with injury, and he hasn't been prime time Stanley Cup Vasilevsky per se, but he can still do that. When it is playoff time, he can still turn it on. There hasn't been a playoff season that I can remember where it was Vasilevsky screwed up for the Lightning, or he caused them the series. Whereas with the Leafs, it seems it's always something like that, whether it's Freddie, whether it's yeah, Samsonov getting injured. Or no, Joseph Wall was the one who got injured that
Yeah.
past last playoffs.
Yeah, and
Game
Samsonov
6.
just couldn't stop a beach ball.
Yeah, that was tough. That was tough. But yeah, no, Samsonov now in Vegas. We'll see how he does there. I always forget too that the Leafs got Ekman Larson from the Panthers, so that'll be an interesting new look too to have him back there. I don't know if he's clearly out of his prime, but it's still valuable to have him on the back end, kind of a veteran big guy.
Yeah, and he's a good puck mover,
Yeah.
and his offensive presence is still there. Like I think it'll be good to have a defenseman, and like I love Jake McCabe. No disrespect to this player, but like he shouldn't be getting power play reps, and I think having OEL out there will definitely just help the power play perform a little bit better, because then if you have on the top unit, say Morgan Riley's there, he gets hurt or he's struggling and you got to move him off that unit, you have a guy that has quarterback power plays in the past. And I think Ekman Larson, he's not what he was in Phoenix, but he's not as bad as he was in Vancouver either.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of showed that in Florida. And if he can be a guy that maybe plays 15 to 20 minutes a night and get some power play reps and start him in the offensive zone a bit more, like I think it's a deal that can work out well. And like as I've done more thinking over the summer, it grew on me, because when that deal first got signed, I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But it's grown on me a bit more, and I think he's a guy that'll fit like the mold, because the Leafs defense have had trouble not just keeping pucks out of their own net, but also just getting it out of the zone.
Yeah.
Like they have a couple guys that are those lunch pail off the glass and out, but to have a guy like Ekman Larson that can actually bring the puck out of the zone and then give a breakout pass to one of their dynamic wingers and get the rush going, I think that'll help them on the back end. And then, you got your lunch pail guys back there, like Chris Tanev's going to be unreal. Just dude blocks shots. He can go up against the top competition, and like I'm very excited to watch him. And then Simone Benoit emerged last year. You got to hope that he can continue on that. Jake McCabe has been unreal, and it was kind of Kyle Dubas's parting gift was trading for Jake McCabe at half retained, and he's been awesome. And the fact that we get another season out of him making $2 million is going to be fantastic. And then, we know Morgan Riley's good, and it's kind of that last spot. Is it going to be Timothy Liljegren, who I hate watching Timothy Liljegren. I think he's terrible.
Damn. No love for Timothy Liljegren.
None at all. And they got this Yanni Hakanpää guy who his knees might be, like his knees seem to be held by like duct tape at this point. But if they can hold up, like he's not going to score much, but he's just, again, this huge guy that's going to hit people and drop the gloves and just kind of be a lunch pail guy. And I think they got a good balance of it this year, where they got three guys in Riley, Liljegren, and OEL that can move the puck, and then you got your lunch pail guys that can block shots, make hits, clear the front of the net, and try and make just life harder for the opponents, because like you're in a playoff series and you're a guy like Brad Marchand who makes his living in front of the net. It's a lot harder to do that when you have Chris Tanev and Jake McCabe and Simone Benoit just playing the xylophone on your spine with their sticks,
Yeah. That's awesome. I normally don't need to ask about hockey lingo. I'm pretty good, as a hockey player. I know most of it. Never heard the term lunch pail guy. So what does that even mean? I can kind of get it, but where does that come from?
They're like the blue collar players, Like they're not necessarily the enforcers, but they're the guys that, they get their lunch pail, they put on their hard hat, and they go to work, and they're just the guys that are, they're blocking shots, they're fighting, they're hitting people, clearing the front of the net. Like they're just like the guys that I feel like a lot of hockey fans in this city just gravitate to, Like my dad loved Wendell Clark when he was my age, because Wendell Clark would go out there, he would score 30 goals, and he would get 300 penalty minutes. Even growing up, like I loved Colton Orr, because I would go to a Leafs game and they'd usually lose because the Leafs were god awful for the first 15 years of my life. But Colton Orr went and beat up some guy on Florida, And I think just you need to have those lunch pail guys that just they put on their hat, they go to work, and they work hard, and it's not flashy, but they get the job done.
Absolutely. I have 3 rapid fire questions for you. 2 about the Leafs. One's about Washington. And then I'll let you give some final thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up. I'm going to put in a new battery to get these cameras all sorted out, and we can close it out there. Okay. Last break, last pause. 3 rapid fire questions, and we'll go from there. First one. There was a lot of talk at the start of the season about trading Marner. What are your thoughts on Marner? And if they were to trade him, what kind of return would you want?
So my thoughts on Mitch Marner is I am done with this player.
Okay.
It's every year it's the same thing with him. He goes unreal regular season player. There's no denying his talent. Playoffs come around, the games get a little bit tighter. He doesn't perform, especially late in series. Like sometimes you can look at his numbers and be like, well, he had 6 points in 7 games. Still a drop off from what he does in the regular season. And also 5 of those 6 points came in games 1 through 3.
Yeah.
I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's a guy you can win a cup with, you know? There's guys that have that in every sport. So for me, like, I think too is I felt backstabbed during his first contract negotiation.
Yeah, right.
When Matthews signed a deal, and then the next day his agent does an interview with the Toronto Star, and he goes, well, Matthews is getting this, so this is what we expect Marner to get. And it's like, goals matter more than assists. One person gets a goal, 2 people get an assist. And Marner doesn't score goals at the same rate. And Matthews, take away that Montreal series, has shown up in playoff series.
Right.
Marner, to me, hasn't. And paying multiple players over $10 million, the Leafs have proved it doesn't work. Right. I know the cap's going up, but I don't want to pay him the money he's going to command in free agency. And, you know, if you have, like, I like to set goals at the end of the year. And I'm assuming the Leafs' goal is to win the Stanley Cup. And if it's not their goal, anybody that doesn't have that goal can go play somewhere else.
Right.
And they get not even a quarter of the way there every year. If I didn't get a quarter of my goals every year for 8 years,
yeah,
I'd be pretty embarrassed.
Right.
You know, I could be like, oh yeah, hitting these 3 goals was pretty cool, but
would you say that making the playoffs kind of is halfway though?
At the start, but eventually enough time passes where you're like, okay, now you guys are making like a lot of money.
Yeah.
You're not like the same age as university students anymore.
Right.
Like, it's time to get over the hump. Maybe they will. I hope I'm wrong about it.
Yeah.
Every time I trash the Leafs, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I think they should have traded him this summer. I think they should have traded him last summer.
Yeah.
When they fired Kyle Dubas, when the no moves kicked in. But, you know, I think a return I would want. Cap space is very valuable. I would like a defenseman for him. Like, if you can go get something similar to what Florida had to give up when they got rid of Matthew Tkachuk. And I know Jonathan Huberdeau didn't age the same. Like, he's not the same player in Calgary as he was in Florida. Yeah. But if you can go get like a first line winger that maybe isn't quite as good as Mitch Marner, and go get a defenseman, like if you can get a top 6 forward, top 4D, and a couple draft picks, I think that's a fair return. I think Tkachuk is a fair comparable, and I think you kind of get a little bit worse of a return just because of what Matthew Tkachuk can provide to a team compared to Mitch Marner.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I was just thinking about this. Sorry, that's the reason I'm on my phone. I am blocked on Instagram by Mitch Marner. Did you know that?
That's incredible.
It's because I would DM him when he wasn't signing his contract. I was like, Mitch, are you going to sign? When are you signing, buddy? Get on the team. Stop holding out. Blocked. You look up Marner_93. It's nowhere there.
Wow.
So
I got to take a page out of your book.
Mitch, I'm sorry. I apologize. Forgive me. Just kidding. If they trade him, that's life. I've been a Matthews guy always, so is what it is.
Yeah, I was always a Nylander defender.
Yeah.
At family gatherings, like my dad and my uncle would who just grew up with Don Cherry. They're like, he's soft, he doesn't do this. And I'm like, hey, he shows up in the playoffs.
Right.
And then they watched I think it was the Montreal series, and they're like, all right, Cole, you were right.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but they came around on him.
Absolutely.
So.
That's sweet. Second question. rapid fire. This one is the Washington one. Is Ovi going to pass Gretzky? If so, when?
He's definitely going to pass him.
I'm going to look up how many goals he needs.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I feel like he's like around 30 to 40 goals short of him right now.
Let's see. Have you seen his off-season physique?
Is he just like Russian gas?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. He's at 853 right now, so he needs 41 to tie, 42 to pass.
I'm going to say he passes him around like maybe third last lectures of winter semester.
Got it.
I think Washington's got some better players this year. I think Pierre-Luc Dubois has a rebound season. I think he's going to pass him.
That would be sweet.
I really want it to happen. Like Ovi was my first video game that I ever played was NHL 07 and Ovi was on the cover. Yeah. So I think if I always loved him growing up and it'd be cool to see. Yeah. I think he's going to do it this season. Yeah. Because I think that guy is going to be a man on a mission, and I think the Capitals are going to feed him the puck. Like if he hits 35 goals and there's a month left in the season, they'll be feeding him pucks to try and get that record. So I think he's going to do it this season. If he doesn't do it this season, he does it by like Halloween next year. Yeah. But I think it's going to be like late March.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it would be cooler too for it to be like for him to get it done at the end of the season rather than the start of a season. You know what I mean? Like early in the season. I mean, I guess it's going to be exciting either way, but I just feel like the end of the season, you roll into the playoffs. It's this huge kind of, I guess, momentum that would come from that for the Caps. But no, I think like same thing. Like this year they were a huge underdog in the playoffs, got swept, rightfully so. They weren't the best team. They did like an awful plus minus. But I think this year they're going to get into the playoffs and not be like a fringe team. I think they're actually going to be a little bit better. So we'll see. Hopefully. I also think Ovi, I'd like to see him pass the Gretzky record. Gretzky's got the points record. He's representing Canada well. And obviously hockey will be Canada's game. Even if a Russian gets the most goals, it's fine. Last question. John Tavares, this is his last year at $11 million. He's going to hopefully re-sign with Toronto when that contract goes off. But how much do you think the Leafs should sign him for and for how long? What's he worth?
I think he's going to take a hometown discount because I think if he wanted to go elsewhere, he's still like a $7 million player. The problem is, like, I think a lot of the criticisms are because of how much money he makes. And in a cap world, that's just how we kind of have to evaluate hockey players is, are they living up to their contract? Yeah. Because it's not like the MLB where, it's just however much money the owner has. It's like, all right, here's $87 million. Use it wisely. Yeah. I think we'd also look at it a bit different if they had won a cup early in that contract. Like, we knew the back half years wouldn't be great. Yeah. But I'm going to say they re-sign him. I'm going to say like 4 years, $5 million per.
Nice.
But I also could see him moving to a winger. Like if they can get a center to emerge or they go get someone in free agency, I could see John Tavares being a winger for the team later in his career. And I think he plays a style that ages well. Yeah. Because when he was our age, he wasn't fleet of foot. Yeah. It's not like a guy like, someone like Dylan Larkin who is so fast. I could see Dylan Larkin being out of the league at 34 years old just because the speed's kind of the first thing that's going to go. Yeah. But I think they'll re-sign him. I think it'll be around $5 million. I look at what like Nashville paid Ryan O'Reilly as a bit of a comparable for that. Like just sort of two guys at similar points in their career. I think it'll be something like that.
100%. There you go. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's Cole Hayes. Do you have any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to share with the people? Now's your time.
I'll plug quickly. Like we talked about earlier, I do PR and socials for U of T women's hockey. So come out and support a game, varsityblues.ca/tickets. And thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed doing this. So
awesome, man. I appreciate it. Everybody, like the episode. It was great. That is, once again, Cole Hayes. Go check him out. Check out the women's varsity hockey team, the page, all of that good stuff. And you can follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vic, and we will see you next Sunday. Peace out.